You see something? That title was clickbait. I do not think Netflix's Cowboy Bebop is the greatest thing ever. Do I regret making you guys click on this video? Absolutely not. So recently, I just finished Netflix's Cowboy Bebop, and surprisingly, I actually really liked it. Now, this adaptation since its inception has basically been covered in controversy. Everyone has basically given out their opinion on it. Some say it was a good idea, and others were vehemently against it as soon as it was announced. Everyone was divided, and I can't really blame them. Cowboy Bebop is probably one of the most critically acclaimed animes of all time, and as we all know, American adaptations haven't exactly been, the best in the past. For me personally, when I first heard it was being made, I was also kind of hesitant to actually like it until the trailers came out and realized that something was actually quite different about this series. You see, when anime is usually adapted from Japan, it seems that America fucks it up, not because they're unadaptable, but because the people who write the adaptations don't know how to adapt media to screen. This usually ends up with the adaptation either looking bad or feeling bad or just both. It just doesn't feel genuine. I guess that's the word for it. An example is Dragon Ball Evolution.
What the fuck?
I remember being really hyped for this movie as a kid because DBZ was basically a part of every black kid's childhood during that time. Of course, it ended up being really bad, and I think the reason why was because the people who created it just didn't do the right thing with the franchise they were handed. Not to say that the people who created it were dumb or bad at making movies or just didn't care, but I felt like they went a wrong direction with how they were going to do it. The original Dragon Ball has about 150 episodes, and the Dragon Ball Evolution movie condenses the King Piccolo arc into 1 hour and 40 minutes. You'd probably need about 2 hours, or even 2.5 hours to cover even some of what happened during that arc. And because of that and other decisions, the movie ended up being, complete doo-doo. But that doesn't mean that Dragon Ball isn't unadaptable. If someone like Zack Snyder or the Russo brothers made a Dragon Ball trilogy that would span several movies, it would probably turn out pretty great because they worked in directing movies that were similar to that. This is why I think the Alita movies didn't get massive backlash, because for the most part they all did their best in adapting it, and the director, Robert Rodriguez, worked on similar movies in the past. And this is what was different about the Cowboy Bebop adaptation. It actually looked like the creators cared about making this the best series that they could with what they have, and for the most part, they did a pretty alright job in doing that. I'm going to explain why. First, we can go over the positives. It feels a little weird going over the story because for the most part, if you know about the series, you guys probably already know what it is, but I'll recap for you. Spike and Jet are bounty hunters, simply going day to day by trying to catch bounties in order to keep the lights on. As the series goes on, they meet up with strange, dangerous, and sometimes wacky characters. So the story of the first season actually follows half of the show, and actually does that pretty well with only a few hiccups. The style of the show resembles that of the original, but also adds its own flair into it as well. See, Cowboy Bebop, despite what people think, isn't just a neo-western. Cowboy Bebop does take a lot of its influences from westerns, but it also takes influences from other media such as kung fu movies and exploitation movies of the 70s. There were a lot of movies from the 70s that featured some cop or some guy being like a karate master and going ham on everybody. I think the live action remake actually takes that to the extreme. While Cowboy Bebop isn't just a space western, you can feel more of its western influences on the anime series. But in the live action series, it feels like the creators tried to make the series feel more like the exploitation movies of the past, and it was even highlighted in the marketing, and I'm actually glad that they took this route. So it was kind of cool that in the American adaptation, they decided to take one of Bebop's influences and mark that as a template instead. The other thing that I wanted to rave about was the characters. If you know Bebop, nothing major changes for the characters personality-wise. Spike is a calm and collected one, Faze the arrogant, selfish one, and Jet is a responsible and stern one. And I love that the live-action remake really captured what made the Bebop crew so likable to follow. By the end, you really start to feel like these characters are in fact some type of family that actually do love and care for each other, and the series actually really nailed that. The cast is also great at portraying them. Even after being excited about it, I wasn't really that into John Cho being Spike, but after watching the series, I started to really like him in the role. Would it have been better if they cast someone else? Yeah, but he does a great job at portraying Spike here. Mustafa Shakur was basically born to play Jet. I first saw him in The Deuce, and when I saw that he was playing Jet, I was like, Oh yeah, they picked the right guy for this job. I also like Danielle Pineda as Faye. People don't really like her because I guess she said something mean, I guess. But I got into her as soon as she appeared on the screen. There's like this part where Faye is sitting in her ship and she's like reciting these words of what she's going to say to the guy that she's meeting up with. And it's edited to where her face is placed in the same spot as the scene in the ship. And at the same time, she says,
"Hello, my name is Faye Valentine."
And I kind of got a little bit of a chill because it sounded a little bit like anime Faye for just 1 second. Although the personalities of the characters aren't that different, there are several changes that are made to them which I also kind of like. In the live action show, he has a daughter now and she's a bit more involved in the story. She doesn't really do anything that much, in fact she's kind of used as a plot device, but it makes Jet's motives seem a lot less selfish and a lot more selfless, and that adds on to his more stern attitude that makes moments where he's just bonding with the crew or even his own family a lot more special. Faye is also really different from her anime counterpart. In the original anime, Faye actually isn't really a bounty hunter. In fact, she gets the main characters in trouble because she was trying to pull something off for the people she worked with. But in the live action series, she actually is a bounty hunter, and is actually in the first episode. Another big difference is the outfit. Now, a lot of people got on this show for changing it, but I also think a lot of people got really pissed because I think that Faye's outfit kind of displayed another part of her personality, which is her sex appeal. I mean, it wasn't all there was, but that was also a main part of her character, and this character doesn't really have big sex appeal, but I find that pretty okay. This isn't the anime version of Faye, this is the live action one. Spike is nearly the same except for parts of his backstory, which I actually thought were pretty nice. Setting up Cowboy Bebop is actually pretty unique and was a huge job for the people at Netflix to accomplish, and they actually did it almost perfectly. This felt just like the world in the anime, and the music, Yoko Kanno, yes, the original composer from the original series, actually came back, so the music was already good as hell on arrival. That was the good. Now let's talk about the bad, because there are some things that did irk me about the series. Many people talk about the editing, and I kinda will too. Now the editing most of the time is perfectly fine, nothing bad, but sometimes the series will go stupid with it. There's one scene where Vicious executes a henchman, and instead of it showing Vicious slicing the henchman's throat, it just shows the aftermath and then the sound, and that was kinda dumb for me. There are also moments where scenes will flash back and forth like multiple times, and it makes me wish it would just focus on one thing for just a little bit before moving on to the next. Sometimes the editing can go all over the place, and it can really put you out of the mood quick. There are some times when this style actually does work in the series, but other times it just gets really distracting. Another negative is the intro to the first episode. You see, the first few minutes of the first episode actually paid homage to Knocking on Heaven's Door, but instead of being in a store, they're in a casino, and it's kinda bad, and it's kinda dumb. Not because the scene itself is bad, but because of it existing in the first place. You see, the reason why the intro to Knocking on Heaven's Door is good is because it makes sense in context to the setting and sets up who the characters are. The live action scene also sets up who the characters are, but the setting and how they got there is kinda off. In the original scene, Spike is wearing headphones and kinda acts like he's an oblivious shopper, giving us a preview into his doesn't give a shit attitude. In the live action one, Spike is just some guy who ends up upstairs. Now, if they started the scene with Spike already being up there placing bets and not caring that the guy took over the place and then kicking ass, it would have made sense. But it doesn't start like that. Also, why is this guy talking about corporations and being fired in a casino? The reason why I mentioned it in the original was because the cash register was made by the same company that fired him. Doesn't really explain much. I mean, the scene itself isn't really that bad, it just didn't make sense with what we're given and could have been done better. Another negative is the dialogue. Now, people railed on the dialogue because they saw one scene with them in the diner, but most of the dialogue in the series is actually pretty good. But sometimes, it will fall into corny territory. That scene with them in the diner? Yeah, some of what they said in that scene was kinda shitty.
Trees? Are you serious with this? Oh shit, that's nutbags.
Oh my god.
Some of the characters don't talk like real people either. You know how people usually talk in sort of a loose manner? I don't really know how to explain it, but most people don't use super eloquent words to explain things, people, or situations. But certain characters start busting them out for some reason. It takes me out of the story every time. I felt that maintaining a more realistic, slightly Tarantino-like style was what they should have gone for, and I think that's what they kind of did, but they would just fuck that up sometimes. Another negative is Radical Ed, or Edward. He? They? I'm just saying they because I don't want to get canceled. You know what? Fuck it. We're saying she. Okay, as a she. She is featured in the ending of the live action show and is pretty bad. Not because I don't like Ed or this interpretation of Ed necessarily, but because, well, the thing about live action adaptations of animated properties is that sometimes things need to be changed in order for it to fit appropriately in real life. But a lot of shows and movies miss that and fuck it up. Ed is fun in anime form. She's cringe in live action form because the antics done in the show only really fit for anime. You know those videos of teens acting like anime characters or some shit on TikTok or whatever? This Ed is like that, and the red hair is just not helping. They adapted these characters pretty well in live action except for her. Why give her that red hair? Why not give her like actual, I don't know, dirty brownish orange hair, like ginger hair or something? I don't know, it just doesn't really look that good. I'm not saying you can't adapt radical Ed into this series, but you gotta make her a bit more subdued because real life people aren't anime characters. I hope they realize this if a second season is actually made, because that ending actually made me kinda cringe. Now, here's something that I'm actually mixed about. The ending of the series. No, not radical Ed, but what happened before. Now, what I loved about the end was how the Bebop was basically broken at the end. Due to Jet finding out that Spike was a part of the syndicate and having his daughter kidnapped, he tells Spike to fuck off forever and FaZe decides to go at it alone to find out more about her past. So the series really got me wondering how they might find each other again and how their story might end. Because Yoji anime didn't have the group break like this until like the very end. We're only in like the middle, so this is actually interesting. But the thing that has me mixed is the twist ending where Julia goes Heisenberg and becomes a new leader of the syndicate and shoots Spike. I'm not against the plot twist, but I was kind of confused when it happened. I saw hints that maybe she didn't want to leave the syndicate life, but nothing to really suggest that she would do something like this. I mean, the scene was cool, I guess, but like, where did it come from? What happened to make her go like full Empire mode? If they wanted to write her into the position of Vicious, it could have been done much better by having Vicious either actually die or just pretend die or some shit like that, and then have her be like the heir of the throne. But they didn't for some reason. So for my final thoughts, I actually had a lot of fun watching this rendition of the series, and I could tell that the creators actually fucking tried when it came to creating something that would be enjoyable for general audiences and fans. A lot of people hate it, but I don't really get why. I think the best mindset to go into this series with is just abandoning what you know about the original and seeing it as its own little thing, because it kinda is. And I hope that they get greenlit for a second season because they can really learn from the mistakes that they made in the first one and make it more enjoyable for people. I don't really give out rankings, but on a scale, I would put this at like okay to pretty great. So that was my opinion on the Cowboy Bebop live action remake. What do you guys think about it? Do you guys think it was really good? Do you guys think it was a piece of shit? I'll see you guys on the next video. Subscribe, like, and comment. Follow me on Twitter, all that other shit. And bye.